Yeah. Check. We're good? Good? Yeah. I'm not used to like talking into a mic like this, kind of, and I have a bunch of code I want to write today in front of you guys, which always goes well. So this is going to be kind of hard. I'm going to have to like put this in my shirt. So thank you all for coming. This is the first time this has ever happened. If you guys were here last month, how many people saw me speak last month? Yeah? Woo! Thanks. Thanks for coming again. You're like, he didn't do a terrible job last month. So I just want to give a big shout out to the guys at WTO for having me again. And actually, 3 years ago, last month, so that was my anniversary, first time I ever talked at WTO. And it was kind of an intro to this talk. Did anybody see that? Does anybody like remember like this talk I gave like 3 years ago called like documenting user interfaces? It was just before we put on the first ever JQuick conference here, which I helped run. And so I gave everybody at WTO back then a little sneak peek. So today I'm going to show you some really cool stuff. I also haven't slept in 48 hours because I was working on a lot of this cool stuff. So if I like pass out halfway through, just like revive me and give me a Red Bull or something. So my name is Darcy Clarke, if you don't know who I am. I try to do this at every one of my talks, so if you've seen it happen before, I would like everybody to stand up. Come on, get up. I'm standing. Okay. Put your hands up. You know what's coming, right? Up top. Ready? Everybody take a deep breath in. Okay, hold it in. Keep holding it. Yeah, you can lay out. But now you can sit down. Great. If you've never seen that before, I do that. You get some oxygen in your brain, loosens you up. You can high five the person beside you. Everybody showed their armpits to me. I know who's like sweating. Cool. So I'm Darcy Clarke. I'm all these things and more. So many more things. I gave myself half those titles. I'm a developer, designer, UX advocate. Like that. That's the one I like bold every time because it's like it's so made up. But I used to do a talk where I would get everybody to stand up, kind of like I did, and repeat after me. My dad's a minister, and I just like grew up in that kind of style where you're like going through like a sermon or something. And then everybody by the end of the talk was a UX advocate, which was kind of fun. I do a lot of consulting. I take like 6 months off a year. When I'm not taking time off like that, I'm actually working with companies like this. I help run Node School. Who's from Node School? I see a couple people out there. Yeah, there. What up? If you want to learn how to write JavaScript on the server side, come hang out. We're actually going to be here April 16th. So I will teach you how to write Node.js. I focus the last like 12 months on a number of things, standards, accessibility, build tools. The stuff that we're going to focus on today is specifically sort of living style guides, user experience, and build tools. So this is going to be all those things wrapped into one. How many designers are like in the crowd? Pure design, yeah. And developers, mostly front-end developers? Yeah, cool. If you didn't see my talk last month, it was on the future of CSS. So I talked about basically that it's going to be all JavaScript. That's the TLDR if you missed that on it. There's a video somewhere that people can go check out. But yeah, so I did a talk in Berlin in December. I had to like do a keynote, and the talk was called By Design. Essentially, I had to like somehow straddle a whole bunch of front-end developers with some designers in one big audience. And so I was like, what brings people together? And I think it's, design. And the reason why I think of that is because design's everywhere, right? Everything's like by design, right? Apple's like, phone doesn't work, it's by design, right? Right? So we create these things. And I really think sort of at a high level about when I'm designing something or when I'm like building a user experience, about like causation, this is like a big word, but the relationship between what you're doing and the actual end result. And in other words, it's like the experience is what actually happens when you choose to do something or not do something, and you design an experience. So we're going to talk about designing and documenting user experiences today. So why should you care? Well, because Mike says you should care. Does anyone know who this guy is? He has great talks. One of his best talks is like, F you, pay me. That's actually like something he says. It's amazing. But he says you're all designers, right? We're all designers. We all do things. So even if you're like a software or a sysadmin or a crazy software engineer, you are designing and architecting experiences. So we're all designers. We all design things. So that's something that brings us together, right? Like beautiful mountains, right? Bob Ross. PBS, man. I used to love Bob Ross. But some people like to put themselves in silos and say, no, I'm a developer, right? Yeah, stereotypical developer. Or you say you think you're like a business guy or girl. And yeah, so we sort of group ourselves into like these three categories. And I actually, like I said, I have a million titles. I like to actually take on all of those personas. When I attack a problem or design something, I think about problem solving holistically. So from every aspect, right? There's a reason why I'm building something. There's a reason why it needs to function a certain way. And so I consider myself like Ryan Gosling, right? Yeah? He embodies all those people, right? So when I found this picture, I was like, it's all three of those guys right there. I could pull off Ryan, right? Just need to go to the gym a couple more times a year. Yeah, so I didn't come to this myself, this conclusion, this idea of holistic problem solving or holistic design. About Face is like one of my favorite books ever. I read this, I don't know, like 6 years ago. I fell in love with it, and it's got a ton of really good, it's got a ton of good insight. It was written by this guy named Al Cooper and a number of people he works with at Cooper Design. And so they talk a lot about sort of that holistic problem solving. And they go into personas, how you like make personas and user flows and these kinds of things. One of the things I actually got from this book is like the idea of like goal-oriented design. So you sort of work backwards from like a problem, and you find like the shortest path, like the path of least resistance that way. So, but there's three things essentially. So those three people I talked about actually sort of get categorized here in sort of the what, how, and the why of design. And so why represents business needs. So like, why are we doing this? Like, we need to make money. What represents the design approach? Like, what is it that we need to build? And then how represents the development approach? So how are we going to do this? How are we going to execute? So you can look at these another way. Specifically in About Face, they talk about content, form, and behavior. And if you're like got a design background, you probably like these make a lot more sense to you. So content represents the business needs again. Form represents design, and behavior is essentially the behavior, the functionality. So I like to put them in this nice little bubble, right? And these three people, if they're working well together and they're doing rapid prototyping or they're iterating quickly on designs, they're in this like cohesive, nice little chemical color mixture, right? And if you're doing this a lot, then you essentially are executing really well on a bunch of different little problems, right, together as a team. But this isn't usually how things work, you know? You get these gaps in communication, you get these gaps in workflow because people essentially hand off work, right? Designer is not usually the same person that's going to be actually implementing things. I'm in a unique position where I can actually take a product and a project from like start to finish. But with teams, you get these gaps, right? These gaps in these workflows, gaps in communication, and it ends with cats fighting over steak. Yeah, this is care of. And the tools that we have these days, right, if you're a designer, they're not very good. We still have Photoshop, we still have Illustrator, Sketch Framer, all this crap, Principle, they're all the same thing. And if you read the description about my talk, I use this specific word called unidirectional. And the reason why I use that is because I think of all these like other words that I associate with those tools, with those programs. Things like import, export, upload, download. These all sort of associate in my mind the sense that these things don't work well together. There's a break. It's not a bi-directional relationship that you have. At some point, you're not designing anymore, and you have to move on to a new tool, or the ecosystem just isn't. Doesn't work well together. So you get remnants, you get garbage, right? Artifacts. So paper prototypes are great, but you also end up with like a whole bunch of crap at the end of the day, and it's usually not useful, right? You end up with like vision boards that are like annotated to how 6 different versions of like wireframes and like IA documents. So you end up with like a lot of remnants that aren't useful to you going forward even. So let's learn to code, right? Woo! Yeah! DevTO, bunch of front-end developers. I'm speaking to my people, I think, mostly. So learn to code, right? Like this is like seems obvious to everybody here. HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, they are the future. They are the fundamentals of everything we do. And they're ubiquitous. They interact well. There's a whole bunch of tools. There's a lot of things that we have at our disposal. A lot of tools that we have at our disposal that make our lives easier when we're designing experiences, especially for the web. And one of the biggest things that's happened, not recently, but relatively recently, is automation. So this is me, again. It's like Inception right now. Wicked. This is me like 3 years ago again, giving that talk, talking about this idea of documenting user interfaces. And at that point, I really was focused on just the static sort of let's fix the problem of how we document and communicate within teams about our designs. So I made this tool called DSS. And it was not like Darcy style sheets. That was like the joke I always gave. There was another guy that had named a library after himself. It was like Nile style sheets. And I was like, it's not Darcy style sheets, it's documented style sheets. And what it was essentially a tool to be autonomous, help you do basically build living style guides. Right? So you just saw Christina showed off her style guide. We can actually generate that from your code if you write sort of these comment blocks that are very similar to a lot of front-end developers might experience this, but things like JavaScript, like JS.go and things like that. So it was really flexible, had a great API, and it integrated with like task runners like Chrome. And this is kind of what it looks like. This was actually GitHub's version. Has anybody seen this? Yeah, a couple of people have seen some style guides. This is amazing because what this allows you to do is not have to think about how you're communicating about the code that's actually in your repo, right? So you can write a component, and then you are immediately documenting it, and everybody on your team knows where to find the styles and figure out what's actually in your code base. So you don't get like a lot of that duplication. And it's great to essentially have like better communication between designers and developers. So there's this great website called styleguides.io. So in the last like 3 years, essentially, there's been like, I don't know, like 1,000 different versions of like living documentation and living style guides. And so these are just a number of different examples of what essentially you could be building. And there's a number of tools as well. So this is just like a good example of the fact that everybody has this problem and we're all trying to like solve it the same way. So let's talk. I'm gonna have to start to figure out a way to hold this mic and then code. It's okay. Let's just start taking off my shirt. This is gonna work, right? But yeah, this is like totally against code conduct. Anyways, okay, so DSS, documented style sheets. You're not going to stand beside me this entire time. It's okay. I'll figure it out. I can one-hand it. It's okay. I got this. I play guitar. I can do it. Okay. Yeah, just like one hand, like solo this whole thing. Wicked. So this is the repo. You can tell that I'm super active on it. Like 3 years ago, I updated the license. 10 months ago, I updated something else. Yeah, I know. This is why I was up for 48 hours. It's like, I really got it. I gotta like get to those issues. I gotta do all these things. But I want to show you what this looks like. So if you want to have essentially documentation that would keep itself up to date, you do have to do a little bit of work. You turn your CSS developers into real developers by telling them to document the code, and you'll see how good their CSS becomes. I tell you it will happen. So this is what it looks like. It's very similar to like if you've ever written documentation inside of JavaScript or another programming language. You just write this comment block, and then you get kind of descriptive about what it is that you are making. So if it's a component, like a button, you just call it a button. And then it's got some cool stuff in here for like states, some markup stuff. And what this actually does is when you actually run, and I'm not going to do it because I don't have a million hands, but when you actually run the build tool, it'll give you essentially a living style guide. And so here's a number of like files that got parsed, and it does some crazy stuff. Like it's a static file analysis tool. So like I'm like doing some like parsing of like this stuff. I don't know, it's crazy. I don't know what I was thinking. But it's really cool because it generates this for you for free. Again, this is a living piece of documentation. It gives you like, these are actual real examples of like, just like an anchor tag, right? That's a really bad example of like a component, but, so it can parse everything, less, stylus, Sass, it's great. It can do any kinds of like comment blocks. It supports pretty much everything. And what it actually generates is a JSON object, right? So now you can imagine, like, you could actually use this parser to like create any kind of communication within your own teams. You can like, come up with your own language because we allow you to write your own parsers. So you can create like different names for variables. So by default, we give you like name, description, state, and markup. But you can create things called like link or like, other things that you want to keep track of, like versions of a component, things like that. And it's kind of free form and up to you to sort of make that markup. And then you can also change essentially the templates in the front end to generate the documentation however you want it to look. Okay. So this is a cool tool. It's out there. You should go use it like right now, right? But you want to see what I was doing all night. So what's happening in the next like week? That repo is getting updated. So PostCSS has some great tools under the hood that we're going to be taking advantage of. I'm going to be including variables, which was like something that like a lot of people asked for like 2 years ago, and source map support, and then we're going to have a whole bunch of other really cool stuff. So this should be up very soon. So that was cool. That was like I was trying to solve a problem with that project, which was the the user interface problem of documenting user interfaces. But it's really static, right? And I'm not sure if you guys go on Dribble a lot, right? I do all the time. I'm a developer, I'm a designer, I love going here. But you can actually like look up specifically. You can add like to search just for GIFs. If you just put like just query for GIFs, and that's like all you get. And like all the designers are like constantly posting like little pieces of interaction. I'm sure you've seen this before. You know, like this little inbox. It's got like a little bit of animation. This is cool, right? In your mind for how this component's gonna interact, but it's static. It sucks. It's the worst. It's a video. It's a GIF. What happens when you change your color? You have to re-export it, right? This is terrible, right? So you're waiting to see. Yeah. Should like just take a second actually. I'll let you guys just keep watching this animation as it fades small. It's terrible. Yeah. Okay. So Darcy was up all night coding like crazy. I had meant to do this project a number of years ago. Another great example, everybody knows CodePen. You go on CodePen, you see like some awesome like little pieces of interaction. They're good, they're not, again, they're like within this ecosystem of like really poorly defined, like you never set up a project where you just have like a CSS text box and then like a HTML text box and like a couple of dependencies. Like you're probably working on like React like craziness now and like big, you know, Angular projects. So that doesn't fit into your workflow. It's not, yeah, it doesn't, it's not good. So let's get to interactive documentation. Here we go. B001, DSS, the recorder, and the playback tool. So what this does, it will actually record users' interactions utilizing a Chrome extension, and then it's actually going to play it back. So if anybody's ever done like full functional testing with like Selenium WebDriver and that kind of stuff, you can imagine how cool this can be, right? There's some other things that are going to be available as well, but I'm actually going to show you how this works, which is going to be crazy. My friend Darren wrote a number of years ago, I think now it's like 2 years ago. He wrote a post about doing rapid prototyping with Framer.js. This doesn't work, by the way. Again, you have this breakdown essentially in the technology, and it doesn't work. It breaks down. So you guys are going to get first-hand look. I'm super excited right now to show you this, but okay. See, demo, preview. Which one is it? Here we go. Here we go. Okay. So I have what essentially just looks like a little preview. You can imagine that we would actually be opening up these little preview windows and these components to be working on, let's say, one piece of UI or an interactive piece or component separately from like that documentation portal. But these two things can live together, right? The actual player can live together. So there's some really interesting stuff here. There's like a share button, which doesn't actually work. There's some really bad code, which I'm going to try to hide. And then there's like this cool like little like card thing that has like a nice little transition. And you're like, ooh, yeah, Darcy, designer, developer, awesome. So then you see like this button down here, and you're like, ooh, I can't wait till he presses it. Well, I'm going to do it right now. So here we go, we're recording now, and now I'm like interacting with this thing. If I click on it, it like sort of goes out, and then I click stop, and then you see there's like a little play button pop. And then in the console, you're like, what's this array thing? And you, oh man, it's really cool. This array thing, if you like look in that array thing, it's a bunch of objects with like some really interesting information about all these events. And then if I start to like play this recording, holy crap, there's like a little cursor thing that pops up. And then he's like, I'm going to replay everything you did. If you're good to me, come on, do the thing. Wait, no, you're refreshing my browser here. Let's do this again. Don't let me down here. Oh no, there's like, oh, what's going on? Oh, not now. There we go. Hey, whoa, things are happening. Whoa, okay. So like, Yeah, this is super trivial, you know, like, it just took me, like, you know, it took me forever. I've been working on and off this thing, like, when I'm on planes, like, flying to conferences. There's a lot of components to this to actually, like, be able to capture events that are on pieces, actual, real HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. This is an actual component that's actually will get built from your code, right? It's not like some weird sandbox thing. Like you can see, like we'll pull in where this thing lives within your repository when you build the documentation with the tool. So that's kind of cool, right? I don't know. Let's see if this got some like jankiness going on right now. It's like, okay, if I do that, it's got like active state, then I stop it, I play. It's like a little slow. I'm not sure if it's like Wi-Fi or something. Anyways, really cool, right? It's just, all that is some JavaScript, some HTML, some CSS, some craziness, right? And what's doing behind the scenes is like replaying literally like the state back onto the component. So you can imagine we'll eventually have like scrubbers in this, and like you can actually really share the work that you're working on. And now this is a living piece of interactive documentation. So if I change that background image, I don't have to export something again. I don't have to like, you know, I can change the color really quickly. I can have like this sort of visceral experience with my code. And I don't want to show you code, but I have like workspaces set up. And like, you know that like this is all just, this isn't a movie. You can use like dev tools. Don't look at it. Don't look at this. Okay. So cool. So there's a bunch of things this is going to launch. I was really hoping for today. I got like no time. I don't know. But it's going to have all these things. Essentially, you will be able to share and export. The way that we do that is essentially we compile all your assets together. So that's like a unidirectional workflow or a unidirectional feature, but it's kind of like a nice to have, right? You could be working on a project and then you want to just share it with a friend and you can like push it out to GitHub. The way we do that, there's like this cool like Chrome extension that we can actually like bundle everything. It's like essentially like saving a single HTML file. So that will be there. Some really cool stuff. Linking files in comment blocks. So remember I was talking about the DSS parser and the living style guides. So you can actually link the JSON file and we'll actually read that in the documentation. So you essentially have this like beautiful, nice little video, interactive video. I don't know, it's crazy. So this is kind of what the ecosystem looks like now for this project. We're going to continue to have that stack file analysis and parsing, and it's one of the best. Like I separated it. I think it's one of the best. I separated the parser. Was like the one thing I did right away when I started the project, and a lot of people have used it to essentially be the backbone of their projects. And yeah, we've got like gulp grunts coming, like you know, the recorder, the playback. Really cool. And we have like a working group now that I started like a year ago. Again, like you'll go on there right now and be like, there's no activity. And it's like, well, check out some of the branches that I just like pushed to. But yeah, so cool. Thanks. Sorry, that was some craziness. I'm just going to run around somewhere. So yeah, like stock music, sketch, and framer, they suck. I don't know. Do you guys have any questions at all? Does anybody have any questions? You just want to ask? Yeah.
What was the style guide generator that you used?
So that's the DSS is the parser, and then there's Grunt DSS is one of the tools. Gulp DSS I was just pushing up to today, but there will be a Gulp version of like by tomorrow. Probably. Okay. I just have time.
Is there any issues with compatibility with frameworks like Angular, Backbone, React, Ember?
No, as long as you just include your essentially your JS files and like everything. Like that preview mode, you'll just have to manage like the template and like make sure that it's gonna allow that component to sit in that preview thing. But yeah, you just have to link your own JavaScript files and stuff. That's why it's got like handlebar support, Jade, and Markdown. So you can just like quickly build your own template. That's another thing that like I want to do, just quickly build a bunch of different templates. So,
what's the protocol for contributing to the project, or are you accepting pull requests?
What is the what?
Protocol for contributing. Can we contribute to your project?
Yeah. Well, maybe give me like a day. Give me like let me like go to sleep. And yeah, it had stayed kind of dormant for a number of years, but was something I wanted to get back to. But yeah, pull requests are welcome. Yeah. Cool. Any other questions? No? You guys just want to drink beers and have a good time? Okay. Thank you so much for listening to me ramble.